Welcome back everyone, it's Chris, and in this one we are going to start resetting a user's password. Up to this point, when it comes to our authentication, we basically can register and log in a user and maybe refresh their token when their access token expires. So what we're going to do in this one is see how we can provide them a way that they can set a new password if they ever forget their own. So we will be setting up the endpoints that will be required to do this. So the first thing we are going to need to do is create an endpoint that can allow a user to submit their email, and then we send them a password reset link to that email. Okay, so going back, if we go to our views.py, here, we basically need to set up another class. So here, we are going to set up a class called password reset API view. So class, actually, to make it more mean what it's doing, I'm going to call it request password reset email. Okay, so this is going to be inheriting from generic API view because we want to handle our methods the way we want. So right here, we basically want to handle a post request because the user is going to be submitting in their email. So here, let's have post text in self and request since we are in a class. Alright, so the first thing I want to first do now is set up a serializer to handle this, just so it can expose the fields to our view. So here, in our serializers.py, we are going to need to set up another one. So class request serializer. So this is going to be inheriting from serializer since we are not dealing with the model now. So now what we want to do is define the fields. So of course we are going to have the email. So the email is going to be serializers.email field. So this will give us the validations that it has to be an email. So if we ever want it to be validated against like the max length and min length, we can do it here. But this will do it. So if we want to make sure that it's validated that it's to be required, we can add min length. So min underscore length. So let's set that on something like 2. That will ensure that the user has to provide it. And then email field will make sure that what they provide will be an email. Okay. So down here, I'm going to define a class meta. So class meta, and then define the fields to expose. So this is going to be fields. So now we can have email here. Okay, so let's bring this one up to our view. So let's set our serializer class equals that one. Very long name. We probably could do better on that one. Anyway, not a very big deal. So once we have that, now we need to handle what happens when a user sends the data to us. So basically what we want to do is pick the data and send it to the serializer, and then the serializer will do the job of validating the data to know if we have that user. And then we already have a utility, you remember, that sends an email and then send it to that. So here we are going to do serializer equals self.serializer class, and then we want to give it the data. So we can give it the data using the key data. This will be the data that the user sends. So request.data. Alright, so if we want to run the validations in the serializer, we have to call isValid. So here we can do serializer.isValid, and then raise exceptions to raise exception true. Alright, so this will send, let's say a user has submitted an email, this will send it to the serializer. So here in the serializer, we have to implement a validate method. So validate. So in here, the data that comes will be accessible in attrus, but of course could be named beta, but doesn't matter. So here, I'm going to have a try catch block here, just so we don't run into errors when a user is submitting an email that doesn't exist. But anyway, we can also handle that situation. So here, I'm going to do email equals attrus.get email. All right, let me have a fallback. So now that we have this, now we can query the database to see if we have this email. So what you can do something like if user.objects.filter. So I want to filter by email. So email will be equal to email, and then we can call exists on it. So right here, if this exists, then it means the user actually has an account on our app and we can send them an email. So if they don't, so here let me actually add a pass. So if they don't, then we basically will also tell them that we sent you an email. So actually we can do that one real quick. So we can return the attributes themselves, really doesn't matter. But here, so here what we want to do now is send an email to this user that contains the token, that contains the token. So here we want to send them an email that contains a reset password token. So for us to be able to construct a reset password token, we are going to need to import some utilities from Django. So from Django here, contrib.auth.tokens, import password reset generator. So I'm also going to import some utilities to make sure that we are sending data that can be easily understood on the network. So I'm going to import some stuff from utils. So from Django.utils, that's URLs, utils encoding, import. So we are going to import smart SDR, and also we are going to be importing force SDR, and then we will be bringing in smart bytes. Also, we want to import in Django Unicode decoder. So we'll use this one. We are decoding the tokens we make. So these ones are actually used to make sure that we are sending conventional data. So it enables us to enforce Unicode. All right. So once we have those, I'm also going to be bringing in some other utilities to encode the user's token. So from Django.utils.http, import URL safe base64 encode and URL safe base64 encode. Right here, we need to create two things. One will be the ID of a user, but of course hashed. So I'm going to call it UID B64 because it's going to be base64 encoded. So here, so what we do is we use URL safe base64 encode, and then we give it the string to encode. So at this point, we are going to be encoding the user ID. So for us to get the user ID, actually, I'm going to copy this and then create a user here. So user will be this. So this is going to be get. So get returns us 1. So this is going to be user.id. Alright, so that will do the encoding of the user ID. Now we need to create a token. So for us to be able to create a token, I'm going to set a variable called token. Then we are going to use the password reset generator class. Then what it does is you call a method called make token, and then you give it a user. So our user now will be the user we already have. Okay, so this class will take care of knowing if a user has changed the password such that it can invalidate this token, and in that way another user doesn't come and use the same reset password token to change the user's password in the future. So yeah, so once we have this, now of course we need to send them to our send email utility. So if we take a look at it, if we go to our utils, you can see that it receives the data, which should have a subject, and then the body, and then the to email. All right, so let's see how we can easily construct that. If we go here, we should be able to see this. So this is what we did when we were verifying a user. So right now I'm going to copy everything here up to data, and then even up to the util, where we call the util. So I'm going to copy everything, come to the serializer here, bring them in. Then of course I need to tap this one over up to there. So now let's edit it. So we need to import current site from the sites framework. So from Django.contrib.sites.shortcuts import get current site. So that will give us the site we are running on. We need to import reverse because we want to get the link of the view where the user will be going. So this is going to be coming in from Django.urls, import reverse. All right, once we have that, now here we need to have access to the request. Okay, so I believe we can do that. So here where we bring in atlas, we should be able to do something like self dot request. Oh, we don't have request here. Damn. All right, so for us to add atlas here, we can actually do that. So if we go to, so for us to add the request in this, to have the context here, we can actually do it in several ways. But what I want to do now is here, when we send this, I also want to send the request. So I want to set a variable called data here. So this is going to be, I'm going to have request, and then I'm going to set it to request. And of course, this should be a dictionary, and then we can bring in this here. So put a comma and then bring it in. So now we are going to be passing data equals data. And of course, this now should be data. Okay, so this actually changes our outlook quite a bit. So this should be a full colon and this should be a full colon. All right, so once we send this, now in here, for us to access the atlas, they will be in a key data, and then we will have the request in the key request. So down here, this should be atlas.data. So let's take a look again. So this is a dictionary. So it will be atlas data dot get that, meaning to get the request, we will have to do, so where is it? So right here, get current site. So right here, we'll have to do atlas.data. Then we need to pass, of course, the request key. So request equals then dot request. So we can do dot get, then request. All right, so once we do that, now we need to create the view where the user will be going when they are going to verify the token. So what we're going to do is we are going to have a simple view, and the road for that view will be to take in what the user is sending from their email and then do a validations for it. So I'm going to come back to this, but let's first set this one up, then we'll come back there. So I'm going to set up another view. So class is going to be, let's call this one password token check API view. So this is going to be importing from the same thing, generic API view. And now in this one, we basically are going to be handling a GET request, because if you think of it, when a user clicks a link in the email, the browser has to do a GET request to validate those links. So here we're going to have a GET, so def get, takes in a self and then request. And then we are going to be expecting some more information from that request. So one of them is going to be the UID B64. So we can use this information again to validate which user it was. So another one is going to be the token, of course. So now in here, for now I'm going to have a pass, but we'll get to this. So now this is the link that we need to construct and also send in the email. So let's set up the URL for it. So this is going to be I'm going to call it password reset, and then we are going to be expecting two things. So here we are going to expect a UID B64, and then we are also going to expect a token. All right. So now this is going to be going to our view, the last view we created, which I believe is that. So let's also bring it in. Then we call as view, as you know. Then we need to give it a name. So now pay attention to the name, because we are going to use it to create the link that we use. So I'm going to call this one password reset. I'm going to call it confirm. Okay, so now that we have the name, we can go in our serializer and then use this name in the reverse like that. So we're going to use in the reverse and then provide the other arguments that we will be submitting. So for us to provide the arguments, basically you can see that it expects them here. It expects these two. So we need to construct this. So the way we can do that is right here. In the reverse, we can pass in another parameter and pass in quags. So here we can pass in quags, which will be a dictionary with key and values. So one will be the UID B64. So let's set that one to the UID B64 we already have. Then the next one will be the token. So let's set the token. So we set that one to the token we already have. Alright, so that will be able to create for us a link that we want. Alright, so right here, we will not want to append this, so we can as well remove it. And then, of course, we don't need this. So let me bring the relative link here. Okay, and that should create our absolute URL. So now we can say hi user.username, but in this one, we want to be saying their name because they could be lying to us. So it's gonna be hello. I'll put a comma, and then on the new line, I would say use this link to reset your password. Reset your password. We leave this space here, and then we give them the link, and then we construct our data, which has a body, and then the to email, which is the user's email, and then the subject will be reset your password. Alright, so right here, now we need to send the email, so we can do util. We need to import it. So up here, we can do from .utils import our util class. So now we can say util, where is it? Send email, then we give it the data. So that should do the job. So I'm going to tap this one inside, and then here in our try, so now we are going to be catching exceptions. So here the exception that we think can happen basically will be, actually here I think everything is good because we are actually making sure that this doesn't exist. We are not using the get when we haven't checked the exists. So everything is okay. So we will work outside the try catch. So I'll remove it here. And then let's see. So we'll work outside the try catch, and then we are going to be returning super here. So I'm going to tab this one over. Let me remove the try. And now I need to format this guy. So this will do for the case where the user exists. So we also want to return even when they don't exist. So that should do. So now in our view, which is here, so if it's valid, then we want to tell the user that we sent you a password reset email. So here we can return response, and this will be something like success. Then we said something like we have sent you a link to reset your password. Alright, so let's send back the status. So we can do something like status, this should be outside, status equals status 200, okay. Okay, such that the user knows that we sent them an email and they can check it out. So for now, I'm going to save this and then we can test it out. So if we come back to our view and reload, you see our application is there, and then you should be able to see that we basically have one endpoint added, which is this one, and this one is sending a GET request, but we also want the one to handle the POST request. So let's take a look. Okay, so we have this one here, so we need to make sure that this one also appears in our serializer. So let's take a look at our URLs, which is here. So let's set that one up. I actually thought we had, but no. So we are going to have a path. So this one is going to be something like request reset email. So this is going to be going to this as view, as underscore view. We need to import it. Then the name will be can actually be anything. So let me first import this one in here, and then the name will be the same name as the URL path. And of course, we need a trading slash at the end. All right, so have that one in there. Don't forget to add a comma. Oh, so this name shouldn't be X at all. How did it get to be X? Let me rename it to this. So let's actually check, because this has to be the same name that we use for the reverse. So here in the reverse, yeah, it should be reset password confirm. You know how that's changed. So in urls.py, come over here and make sure that you have it like that. Okay, so if you come back to the application and reload, you should notice that now we have this one that takes a post request. So let's try to see what we can provide. So you see we need to provide an email. Okay, so if we go to try it out, so let's try to execute it. And then you can see that we didn't apply an email. Oh, really? We actually did. Oh, so we need to, it's not catching like our validations. So we need to make sure that in the view, so let's take a look at our view and see what we are doing. So we are passing data to Atlas. So when it comes here, should run validate. So it's not even getting here. So let's see. Let's first try to see what's here. Let's add a PDB and then reload it. So let's try again. Reset. All right. Send data. Yeah, so it's not even getting to validate. So this means this is one is validating this up front. All right, guys. So since we are unable to get the request from here, at least for now, I'm going to move everything into the view just so we can do our validations there. And then when I find a better way, maybe I will show you how to do that. So right now, I'm going to bring everything here. Let's see what is here. Okay, so I'm going to remove the serializer is valid so we can validate from here. So basically, we will do the check, and then we want to be checking for the email, so we can get that one from request.data, then email. So here, let me set up a key called email, a variable called email. This is going to be request.data, then email. Okay, so now we can use that. Let me bring the imports. We ship them back. So we're going to need all this stuff up to here, even up to here actually. So I'll bring them in here. Okay, so once we have those, now you can see that we are able to construct this. So when it comes to the request, we want to be passing the request that we already have. And then the reverse, everything here is okay. And now we can try testing out again. So if we come back to the application, reload, let's go to post, click try it out. So when you click execute, so you can see that we are having quite an issue. So reverse for this with these keywords, the token and this was not met. So we need to check our URLs and our view name and see what we actually have. So right now, when we do a reverse for this should be a unique name, unique view name, and then the quags, we need to make sure this one is being expected and this one is being expected. So when we go to our URLs and then look at the name for this, so we want to make sure the name is the same. And then this, so the problem is here, we need to wrap this in these ports. So let's try again. Come back to post, try it out, click send, and now it's taking some time. I hope it's sending the email, most probably. So still, when you take a look at our view here, you see we are handling only the case for when the user has an email. So when they don't, so here we are handling a case for when a user has an account. So if they don't, we are going to still be sending them a success message, I believe. Okay, so you can see that now after a while we get the success message being sent. But when I use an email that doesn't exist, let's say like that, it should come very fast. So you can see we also get the same thing. So this can prevent us from people who would be sending us like a lot of requests to check if some users exist in our database. But now let me use a real one just so we can see if we get our links. So we use mine, gmail.com. I don't need the other .com. So if we click execute, let me also check my email to see if the email came. So now if I check my email, you can see that I have a new email that has a link where I can reset my password. So it has our encoded token and then it has our ID. So when I click on it, you can see that it goes basically to the view that we created, but then the view is not doing anything. So this is the view, it's doing nothing. So right now, let's go ahead and validate the tokens and then see how we can provide the user an endpoint where they can supply a new password after they pass this step, from which we'll check if the token is still valid and all that stuff. So here, what we will first do is try to get the user ID. So I'm actually going to be doing everything in a try catch. So I'm going to have a try except block. So in here, we are going to first try to get which user it is. I'm going to use a key ID. So this is going to be, we're going to use the smart str utility that we brought in. So str, remember we used smart bytes earlier to create byte strings. So now we need to put it into human readable strings. So we can do that by using smart str, and then we use URL. So what is this guy? So this should be URL base64 decode. Let's see if we're importing it, which I think we are. Decode, yeah, this is the one. Alright, so down here, we need to bring in that, and then we will be decoding our UID B64. Alright, so this should give us which user it is. So once we have the user, now we can like get the user from user equals user, should be user objects dot get. We are going to get by the ID equals ID. Okay, so once we have this, now we want to make sure that the user is not using this reset link for the second time. So right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an if statement here, and we use the password reset generator class, which we have already imported. And then for us to know if a user had used this, we call a method called check token, and then this takes in a user, of course. So we pass a user. So if the user has used it, this will return false. So we can check for false. So if not, this is false. Then we can send them a response. So we can return something like token is not valid anymore. Please request a new one. Yeah. So 401 should do. So it should be HTTP 401 unauthorized. So that should do. And now here, we need to basically, so in here, if we are able to do all this, we need to catch some errors. For example, if a user tampers with the token, let's say they tamper with this token, it will not be able to be decoded. So we are going to handle errors here. So here we are going to handle a Django Unicode decode token, Unicode decode error. So now, if they tamper with that, then we are also going to send them a response that it's invalid. Okay. So otherwise, we are going to now send a response that this token is still valid, such that on the front end, we can have a way that we can, so on the front end, we know that token is valid, and we can expect the next request to be from a valid user. So and now we want to return a dictionary. It's going to be here. I'm going to have something like success. I'm going to set that one to true. So I can also have like a message. So yeah, I can have something like credentials valid. And then I want to send back the two tokens. So one of them is going to be this So I'm also gonna send it. So it's gonna be that. Another one is gonna be the token. So let me copy the token too. So this will be the token. Okay, so once you have this, we need a comma here. Alright, so let's send a status. So we can add status 200 HTTP 200. Okay. Alright, so we need to move this one up. We need to move this one before the response. So here we can first check if it's already in use, then we do that. Otherwise, we send the response, and this should be a capital T. Okay, so this should do the job of verifying that the token is valid. So I'm going to now come to the documentation, then I will reload this. So you can see check token is missing one, so we are calling check token. We need to pass the token too. So let's pass it. Okay, so let's reload. And now you can see that the token is valid, everything is looking good. So now if this token is used, this should not be able to be displayed. So we can keep it to this. So now let's create an endpoint that will enable a user to set a new password. For us to do that, we're actually going to have another view that will manage like picking the user's new password and then setting it. So right here, this one is going to actually be quick. So class, I'm going to be calling it set new password. We are going to, of course, have a serializer, so I can set it up here. So serializer class. So I'm going to call this one something like set new password serializer. Then we'll create it in a bit. So we also need to define we want to pass the data to the serializer. So we need to define our method. So def, and since we are going to be changing the user's password, then we can make this method patch. So def patch. And now this one will take in the self and then the request. Okay. So in here, now we can set our serializer data. So serializer equals self.serializer class. And now we can pass in our data. So the data will be the request.data, of course. Okay, so let's create this. But before we do that, we want to run the serializer's validate method. So we can do serializer.isValid is_valid, and then we run raise exception equals true. Okay, so this will make sure that the validate method in the serializer is run, and that's where we're gonna do all our new changes. So once it's run and there are errors, of course they are going to be thrown, and now we can return a response to the user. So we can return response, then we can say something like success. We can add like true, and then we need to define a custom message. So we can do something like password reset success. Okay, so let's send a 200. Once we have this, now let's go ahead and work on our serializer, where we'll do most of our logic to reset. So this should stop here, and at the end we don't really need this one. Alright, so now I'm going to import the serializer and then we create it. So if we go in our serializers.py, which is here, at the end we're going to define a new one. It's going to be set new password serializer. So this will inherit from serializers.serializer. So down here we can define the fields we expect to get. So you notice that in this endpoint, this one, you can see that we have the token and then we have the user's ID encoded. So we are going to need to require them even when they are setting a new password. So here in the serializer, we are going to set that we need a password. This one is going to be serializers char field. Now we can define our validation. So we can do something like min length. This will be like 6. Then we can define a max length. This can be like 68. And now, since we don't want to be sending back the passwords, we can add a write only to true. All right, so once we have this, now we are going to duplicate it for the other two. So that one, so this one is going to be for the token, and this one is going to be for the UID B64. Okay, so now these validations of course will change. The token, we actually don't need much. I'm going to keep them to the bare and minimum just so we can get the validations to come through. But so we can keep the min length just so it keeps required, and then when it comes to this token, we can keep the min length to be 1, and that should do the job. So once we have that, now we can go ahead and work on our class meta. So in here, class meta, of course we need to define the fields. So this is going to be our fields up here. So password, next thing is going to be the token, next thing is going to be UID B64. All right, so once we have those, we need to work on the validate, because here on the view, when we call is valid, it has to run the validate. So down here, we need to run to override the validate, and in here, now we can get the details, get the details that the user sends, and then we see if we can set the user's new password. So right here, I'm going to have a try catch, because we are going to be decoding this UID, which is here, this UID B64, and it normally throws an error when a user tampers with it. So we need to have it in a, we want to be catching, it's going to be called, let me bring in the imports again. So up here, I'm going to be bringing in this up to here. So here, let me bring them in. So we are bringing in the password reset token generator. This is going to be for checking if the token is valid, because we need to redo that. So also we are bringing in, like, we want force str, because we want to be able to get a human readable ID from this. And then this is our exception we are going to be catching, and then we want to of course decode the token. So if we come back here, now we can first get the values. So we can do password equals address.get password. So the token will be address get token. So this UID B64 will be the same. We can now try to decode this token again to get the user. So we can do like ID. This one is going to be URL base64 decode, and then we are going to be decoding the string. So in this case, it's this one, and we want to make sure that this is human readable. So now we can wrap it into force str. Okay, so once we are there, now we can get which user it is from user equals user objects with get. So we're going to be getting the user by the ID. So ID will be equal to this ID, and then here let's catch all the exceptions. So except exception as E, doesn't matter. Now that we have a user, we can now go ahead and set a new password. But before we do that, we want to check if this was not used before. So you know we've done that before, so we can do if not password reset generator check token, and we're going to be checking for this user, then texting the token, of course, which we have here from the user. So once we check this and the token has been used, now we can raise an exception. So here we can do raise, we have already imported authentication failed, so raise authentication failed, and then here we can say something like the reset, not rest, so reset link is invalid, and then we can actually supply an optional parameter for the status code. So 401 would be suitable. So if we have exceptions, so down here, so try except. So here we can accept exception as A, and then here we can actually return the same error. But the cases can be different, so please dig down to see how you can validate it. But for the most part, they are all going to be linking to the error, to the reset link being invalid. Once we have this and we have checked that it's valid, now we can go ahead and set the user's password. So we can do something like user with set underscore password. Of course, we pass the same password that we have, and of course the password will be validated against these rules. So I realize, yeah, to be validated against these rules. So now we need to run user.save, and then we need to return the user. We need to register our view in our URLs. So I'm gonna go to our URLs. So down here, I'm gonna put a comma, then I'm gonna have a path. So this one will be going to password reset, and then we need to bring in our class, so I will import it up there. Let's bring it in as view, set a name. So name will be, I'm going to use the same name as the route. Alright, so once we have this, let's take a look at our view, and then take a look here. See, we have a patch, and then once we get the patch, then we go to our serializers. So what it does is it will run the validate, then it will do the job of, if everything okay, it will set a new password, and then if not, it will raise the link was invalid. Okay, so let's come back here and reload. Alright, so when we come back, you should see that we have a reset, a patch to complete. So when we click on it, you can see that we are required to pass the password, the token, and then the UID. So how do we get this? So if you look at our email, we'll be sending a user an email with this. So I'm actually going to copy this. So if we come back to our documentation, you can see that we have this endpoint where we can check our tokens. So I'm going to bring them in here. So up here, we need to supply a token. So let me copy the token, copy this, bring it up, and then keep this one in that field. Click execute, and then you can see that they are valid. So I'm going to now copy them. So copy the token that we get back. So in the complete, which is here, now I can supply the token, and then when it comes to the UID, I should be having it. It's here. So if we also bring it in, so we can pass it here. So now you see we have we are now supposed to supply a password. So I'm gonna put like password, so like pass only. So if we try to submit this, note that we get a bad request. We can see that it's validating it here. So if we don't supply any of these, so let's say we don't supply this, and then try to do this, so you get more errors. So all this stuff are required. So let's undo and actually supply a password that is longer. So password 123, click execute. Now you can see that we get password reset success. So good. So let's try to do it again to check if the token is actually invalidated or not. So here, if I do execute, you can see that we see that the token is invalid because it was used before. So yeah, so this will do it. So sometimes there might be some modifications you need to do depending on the structure of your front ends. For example, when you have a mobile app, it can be a different way to to register a user. So you will be digging into things like how to work with deep linking. But if it's like a front end, then you're going to need to, instead of returning these responses, you might be returning like a redirect to the front end or something like that. But on the back end, this is generally all you have to do to make sure that the users can reset their passwords. So thanks guys for watching. Consider subscribing to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.